There is a specific kind of person who feels most alive not in the quiet hum of a modern office or the glow of a screen, but in the dim light of a garage where the air carries the sharp scent of motor oil and the faint metallic tang of exhaust. This person can stand beside a running engine and read its language like a familiar poem. The subtle hesitation in a misfiring cylinder, the healthy growl of well-tuned valves, the way a carburetor sings when the mixture is just right. They do not merely own cars, they tend to them, restore them, coax them back from the brink of mechanical death with hands that bear the permanent marks of their devotion. You might recognize them at car shows where they linger longest around the classics. The Mustangs, the Camaros, the trucks passed down through generations, and their conversations are laced with specifications and stories, not of 0 to 60 times alone, but of the long nights spent chasing a vacuum leak or the triumph of finally getting an old transmission to shift smoothly. And when the topic turns to the sleek, silent machines that are increasingly filling the roads, those electric vehicles with their instant torque and digital dashboards, a certain tension enters their voice. They speak of them with a mixture of dismissal and something deeper, almost like betrayal. Soulless, they say, toasters on wheels, not real cars. They scroll through forums late into the night, posting detailed rebuttals to articles praising the future of mobility. They shake their heads at the sight of a charging station, muttering about infrastructure and the hidden costs. Their disdain seems visceral, immediate, as if these new vehicles offend some fundamental sensibility within them. It is easy to reduce this to simple preference, a love for noise and vibration over efficiency and silence. Easy to call it stubbornness or nostalgia for a noisier age. But this isn't really about cars. It never was. What we are witnessing when the traditional car guy rails against the electric vehicle is something far more profound. A defense of a particular way of being in the world. A way that prizes direct, unmediated engagement with the physical reality of machines. Psychologists have a term for this underlying orientation: internal locus of control. It describes the deeply held belief that the events in our lives, the outcomes we experience, result primarily from our own actions, our own skills, and our own understanding, rather than from external forces beyond our influence. For these individuals, the internal combustion engine has long served as a perfect embodiment of that principle. Consider the relationship. In a traditional car, the connection between driver and machine is intimate and mechanical. You feel the clutch engage through your foot. You hear the engine note rise and fall with the throttle. When something goes wrong, you can often diagnose it with your senses. A strange smell, an unusual sound, a vibration you can place your hand upon. The fix frequently involves turning a wrench, replacing a part you can hold and inspect, seeing the cause and effect play out in real time. It rewards patience, pattern recognition, and accumulated knowledge. Mastery feels earned, tangible. With an electric vehicle, that chain of causality becomes obscured behind layers of software, battery management systems, and proprietary electronics. The engine is a sealed unit. Diagnostics require specialized tools and often subscriptions to manufacturer networks. The joy of tinkering diminishes because the average enthusiast is locked out of the deeper workings. The car drives itself in subtle ways, regenerative braking, torque vectoring handled by algorithms. What was once a partnership between human intuition and mechanical systems starts to feel like delegation to a black box. For someone whose sense of agency is tied to understanding and repairing their world, this shift registers not as progress but as a quiet erosion of personal power. This resistance reveals layers of who they are. It begins with behavior. The hours invested in restoration projects, either the pride taken in a well-maintained classic that outlives newer models. But move closer and it becomes about thinking. These are often people who have cultivated a particular kind of intelligence, practical, embodied intelligence. They trust what they can see, touch, and fix. In a culture increasingly mediated by screens and experts, this hands-on approach serves as both skill and philosophy. And beneath the thinking lies identity. To call oneself a car guy, or increasingly a car person, is to claim membership in a lineage that stretches back through mechanics, engineers, and weekend warriors who found dignity in their ability to keep things running. For many, this identity was forged early, in garages alongside fathers or uncles or mentors, and those childhood memories carry a particular weight. The warmth of a summer evening spent learning to change spark plugs, the pride of finally being trusted to drive the family truck, the late-night talks about how engines work while tools clattered in the background. Motor oil on clothes became a badge of initiation. The first successful repair wasn't just mechanical success, it was a step towards self-reliance, a declaration that one could confront problems and prevail. These memories are not mere sentiment. They are the threads that weave personal narrative. In psychology, we understand that much of our identity is constructed through such autobiographical stories, the experiences we select and retell that give our lives coherence and meaning. The traditional car represents more than transportation. It is a vessel for that story, and it carries the echoes of freedom found on empty highways, the independence of not needing a dealership for every issue, the satisfaction of modifying something to suit your exact vision. To watch that archetype fade, replaced by vehicles designed more for software updates than spanner work, feels like watching a chapter of one's own life become obsolete. There is an uncomfortable truth here that applies to all of us. Human beings are remarkably adept at attaching our self-worth to the competencies that once defined us. We resist not because the new way is always inferior. Electric vehicles have their undeniable virtues in efficiency, performance, and reduced emissions, but because accepting them without reservation requires us to loosen our grip on the skills and symbols that have long affirmed who we are. And it demands a kind of psychological humility, admitting that the world is changing in ways that may render parts of our hard-earned expertise less relevant. For the car guy, this isn't petty tribalism. It is an existential ache, a mourning for the analog soul in a digital age. Zoom out further, and this psychology points toward a broader life philosophy. These individuals often embody a quiet romanticism about the material world, a belief that there is beauty and value in complexity that can be grasped by a single mind and pair of hands. They tend to value durability over planned obsolescence, repairability over seamless integration, the raw poetry of physics over polished user experience. In their worldview, true freedom isn't just arriving quickly and cleanly from point A to point B. It includes the capacity to understand the journey, to intervene when necessary, to maintain a direct relationship with the technology that serves us. They see in the push toward electrification not merely an environmental or economic shift, but a cultural one that increasingly places intermediaries between people and their tools. Corporate servers, over-the-air updates, and subscription models begin to govern what was once a more autonomous domain. Their disdain then becomes a form of boundary setting, a declaration that some forms of progress come at too high a personal cost to the sense of self. Yet even as they hold firm, the world moves. Classic car values rise as rarity increases, communities form around preservation, and some even explore hybrid compromises. The story is not one of inevitable defeat, but of negotiation, how we reconcile our deepest attachments with the relentless current of change. So here is the question worth carrying beyond this moment. In your own life, what are the traditional engines you defend so passionately? What skills, rituals, or objects do you cling to not solely because they are objectively superior, but because they form the core narrative of your competence, your memories, and your identity? And what quiet freedoms might you discover if just for a time you allowed yourself to sit with the discomfort of letting one of them evolve?